the BMW i3s, exclusively driven here in India. Bosch's cutting-edge experiment with electric conversion. Welcome to all of you on a brand new episode of CNB. I'm Siddharth Vinayak Patankar. Thank you for joining us. And Diwali may have just gone by, and I hope you've had a fantastic festive season. But we have one firecracker still saved up for you. As you can see, I'm standing next to the brand new Aston Martin Vantage, which just launched in the country last month. So looks fantastic in this cinema orange. I'm having myself a nice time. But we're going to start also with another surprise for you, and this is an exclusive story, one that we've been tracking quite closely. There is some cutting-edge work happening both at the OEM as well as the ancillary side of things for future technologies, where the industry is going. Everybody's talking about electric, but what about retrofitting something and making it electric? Well, sounds like science fiction, but that's the kind of work that Bosch is up to. Cyrus spent some time down with Bosch in Bangalore to bring you this.
Electric cars are no longer a thing of the future. They are here. Tesla, of course, is the first one that comes to mind when you talk about electric mobility, but OEMs like Mercedes-Benz with its EQ range, BMW with its i-Cars, and Volkswagen Group with the ID range are catching up fast. And here in India, we have the likes of Mahindra Electric and Tata Motors doing their bit to go green. But none of these OEMs will be able to do half of what they do without the support of component manufacturers like Bosch. But it's not just cars that Bosch has solutions for, it is almost every mode of transport, including 2- and 3-wheelers.
Yeah, one thing is that it is tremendous opportunity which keeps our excitement levels very high. Now let me give you a sneak preview into what I mean by that. Talking about two-wheelers, we have two technologies. We call it the Bosch Scalable Drive and the Light Electromobility. And the light electromobility is one which we have now offered also for 3-wheelers in India. And the first 3-wheelers are actually undergoing the final testing, the road tests, so to say. These are systems which have a very powerful, very smart machine, electric machine, which is basically a motor inverter combination. And then we have controllers and battery packs on that. Scalable drive is a different power grade, and this is actually for the lower end power segments.
That said, since we are at Bosch's top secret test facility in Bengaluru, we had to go check out something really cool that the component manufacturer had brewing. Now, it looks standard on the outside, but it's got some stickers on it and it says Bosch right here. So, considering the fact that these guys do make a lot of tech for a lot of cars, this does seem to be something special, and honestly, it just is. It isn't a petrol, it isn't a diesel, it's not a CNG of course. This thing is all electric. Now a lot of talk has happened about electric cars and the fact that they are coming and how the government should help electric cars get popular. But nobody talks about converting a standard petrol, box standard petrol or diesel car to electric. And that's exactly what they've done. And we're going to spend a day with it, drive it, and tell you what the challenges are of course, and tell you how nice these can actually get. What the engineers at Bosch have done is pretty simple. They have taken the original engine, which is quite nice in its own right, and basically thrown it away. And the same with the 5-speed gearbox. Instead, what has been installed in the empty engine bay is what Bosch calls an e-axle setup. Basically, it's a combination of the electric machine or the motor itself, the electronics that control everything, and an actual gearbox that transfers power from the motor to the drive shaft, all in one compact packaging. the big question, how does it actually feel behind the wheel, since this car weighs well over 100 kilos over the standard car? Now it's quite uncanny how the Baleno with an electric powertrain drives, because used to it making a little bit of noise, whether it be a petrol or diesel. But this one is actually more powerful than the petrol version, and this car originally was a petrol. Under the bonnet is an electric motor with a set of drive shafts. It's not a hub motor, it's a standard electric motor. It makes about 115 brake horsepower and it makes about 200 Newton meters of torque. At the back are the lithium-ion batteries mounted in the boot. It's a 10 kilowatt hour battery pack, which isn't ideal for a car this size. It ideally should be about 25 to 30 kilowatt hour if you do want a range of about 300 or 350 kilometers. But this is of course a demonstration vehicle. It's a concept, it's a prototype, so that does the job really well. Of course it does add a little bit of weight, but even with all that weight, this car does 0 to 100 in just 8 seconds. And although that's just been dyno tested by Bosch, trust me, when you do put your foot flat down, it does seem to get a move along really well. Of course, it isn't as simple as it seems. For starters, a whole bunch of auxiliary systems that we take for granted have had to be reworked. For example, the power steering pump that works off the engine, and because there isn't one, an auxiliary pump that runs off the electric motor has to be fitted. And the same for the brakes too. This particular car also does not have air conditioning, but the engineers have assured us that given enough time, that would be an easy fix.
Fitting in was not that difficult. Throwing an engine and fitting mechanical fitments were not that difficult. What was interesting was how to calibrate that car and do parameterization, that every system is working in a safe way, in the desired way, and so on, and also honors the safety systems of the car. So it is not a very difficult task, it is doable.
And the changes aren't just under the hood. The all-electric hatchback is now an automatic and has just a simple gear selector with park, drive and reverse, and that's honestly all you really need. Bosch has also ripped out the standard touchscreen infotainment system that comes on the car and replaced it with a high-tech touchscreen of its own. And while it might not have a fancy UI or the latest Apple CarPlay, it does get inbuilt diagnostics, driving pattern analysis, and a whole bunch of tech just for the geek in you.
Definitely. The benefit is that we have the complete knowledge of what's happening in the car and bringing a lot of data from that into the head unit itself. It's not about just showing a navigation or about connectivity. So it's about using the information in the car coming from, for example, engine management, or whether how the braking, or when you have electrification or hybrid, on how this information can be used effectively for working of a car itself.
And just like what you get on the Ford EcoSport, it now even has an inbuilt system that can alert the nearest hospital or police station in the case of a crash. Of course, with more connectivity and abilities like over-the-air software updates, it can actually, in some cases, like we recently saw with Tesla, improve the performance of your car and its components, and even make your brakes perform better. The first question on everybody's mind is security. And Bosch is very, very serious about the sanctity of its systems.
The security is another major aspect. It is quite possible that the individual who thinks he is downloading a genuine software, you never know whether there is any other software which is malign, and this comes into the car and probably misbehaves. And that we are talking about a death or a survival of the individual, because the car may misbehave in the road. And second is, when it's automated, the confidence the person has keeps on improving. He thinks that the car is becoming more smarter. You may stop using the steering, you think it can drive, but if there is an intrusion from outside which actually destroys the whole functionality, that is a big risk factor. So I would say one is the compatibility part, and another is the security, which is a big two items, especially keeping the safety of the individual in the car.
All in all, something like this, like the car we drove, won't be a reality anytime soon. It's certainly exciting to see, touch, and more importantly, drive, since electric cars can actually be fun to drive, especially when you put your foot hard down. Bosch has not only made this car as a showcase of what they are capable of, but also as a point to ponder on. Would we all be doing electric car conversions in the future, buying kits off the internet and installing these over a weekend? Cost would be a consideration, but of course it is definitely something to think about.